After protesters against federal immigration raids clashed with law enforcement over the weekend, setting vehicles on fire, California National Guard troops were moved in at the order of President Trump. This is the first time since 1965 that a president has ordered troops in over the objections of the governor.
This is a manufactured crisis.
Multiple vehicles set on fire, covered in graffiti condemning ICE. An electric scooter thrown from an overpass, damaging a highway patrol vehicle, which was then set on fire. Many hundreds descending on the 101 freeway, blocking traffic in both directions.
ICE raids of local small businesses in Los Angeles has unfortunately led to growing unrest in the city, with protests unfortunately escalating to riots over the last several days. And now we're also learning that more than 500 Marines, active duty Marines, are being mobilized to respond to the riots in Los Angeles. So this is according to ABC News. This was reported today. The Marines are from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines at 29 Palms, California, whom US Northern Command has said Sunday were on a prepared to deploy status if the Defense Department needed them. And I just want to understand what exactly the Trump administration thinks the Marines are supposed to do against American citizens. These are individuals in the military who are trained to kill, like that is their role in the military. And so I understand the concerns. No one understands the concerns better than I do when it has to do with the rioters, when it pertains to riots. And honestly, I'm incredibly frustrated by how things have unfolded in this situation. But the idea that we should use the Marines against Americans is unhinged. And something tells me that Trump supporters would feel the same way if we had a Democratic president or a Democratic administration threatening to do the same against Republican voters or Trump supporters as they engage in, civil unrest. So with that in mind, let's go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about how this all started, what's going on, how it unfolded. Now, the Marines are expected to arrive over the next 24 hours. Hopefully, the worst that I have in my mind right now doesn't come to fruition. But literally minutes before the Marines deployment was confirmed, Donald Trump was asked if he plans on sending Marines to LA, and he said, "We'll see what happens." And look, as I give you more details about this entire situation, I just want you guys to know one thing that I know without a shadow of a doubt. Trump wants this fight. Because the one area in which he is still popular, is his immigration policies. And so for anyone on the left who thinks, oh, this is good optics for us, it's not. And I want to explain why. I want to explain how you can fight back against mothers being ripped away from their kids. You can fight back against Home Depot day laborers waiting outside in Home Depot parking lots, okay, getting arrested. You can speak out against that and effectively strategize in a way that helps people see what's going on. But that's not what's happening right now. So let's talk a little bit about how this all started. So these protests began on Friday night, following reports indicating that ICE agents were targeting undocumented immigrants in various raids. Now, one was in the downtown Los Angeles fashion district. There was a dress shop that allegedly had undocumented immigrants working in it. The Department of Homeland Security is accusing them of using fraudulent documents. Obviously, all of that would need to be proven, right? But I mean, including their immigration status. But obviously, that led to a lot of rage among Angelenos. Why would that happen, even if they are undocumented? Because we're talking about a small business. We're talking about people who, the assumption is haven't committed any dangerous or violent crimes outside of allegedly being in the country illegally. On the same day, we started hearing reports about day laborers waiting outside of Home Depot parking lots, waiting for work opportunities, essentially getting rounded up by ICE, which I will say is one of the laziest and most pathetic ways at targeting undocumented immigrants in this country. Look, we have millions of people with undocumented status in the United States. some of whom are actually committing crimes. I know lefties want to pretend like that doesn't exist. It does exist. So I have no problem with ICE targeting those individuals. And to be sure, some of the people that got arrested by ICE in Los Angeles over this weekend had been convicted of some pretty heinous crimes, but not all of them. And Tom Homan, the border czar, made abundantly clear, yeah, there were definitely people who got arrested for deportation who hadn't committed any other crime other than being in the country without documented status. They're in the country illegally. Okay. So this all kind of began on Friday. Things started to escalate on Friday night. Although on Friday night, for the most part, with a few exceptions, things were under control, right? There were definitely some wreckers. There were definitely some people looking to cause problems. But on Friday night, there was no indication that things had kind of gotten so out of control that we would need the federal government to send in the National Guard to handle it. So now, again, ICE did release the names of some of the people that they've arrested, and they detailed the crimes that they've committed. And so there's that. But remember, they've arrested dozens of people over the weekend. So when you're releasing the names of like 6, 7, 8 people that you arrested, and there's proof or indication that they've committed other violent crimes, that's fine. But what about the dozens of other people you arrested? And does it really make sense for us to use up resources in arresting day laborers at a Home Depot parking lot? So I'll give you some of the names. I want to be honest and fair, right? Some of the people who were arrested have committed some terrible crimes. There's one individual who's a citizen of Vietnam. His name is Chung Phan, 49. Federal officials say he has a criminal history that includes a second-degree murder conviction that carried a sentence of 15 years to life. So, I mean, I would prefer for him to serve his full sentence and then get deported. It's unclear whether that has happened. You have Rolando Enriquez, a citizen of the Philippines, has a criminal history that includes convictions for theft, assault, burglary, and rape, according to the Department of Homeland Security. So these guys, I've got no love for. I don't care. Or I know. I'm supposed to care about all of these undocumented immigrants as if they're all the same. No, they're not all the same. And I want to be clear about that. Now, since the Department of Homeland Security did not provide any incriminating information about the dozens of others who got arrested, I'm just going to assume that they were just here with undocumented status, and that gave them enough reason to round them up. And that has really upset Angelenos. Why would it upset Angelenos? Because immigrants, and yes, undocumented immigrants, make up a significant portion of the population in LA. And you want to know something? The vast majority of them are actually contributing to LA, making LA a wonderful place, not a bad place. And the fact that Trump is hyper-focused on Los Angeles, which yes, is a sanctuary city, is because he wants to have this fight. He wants this to be the big distraction from what is a disastrous budget bill that will add trillions of dollars to our deficit. And he wants to lean into the one area where he still enjoys some favorability, some popularity. So things started to really get unhinged in LA after Trump announced that he would be sending 2,000 National Guard troops to handle the riots. Now, at that point, there was no indication that we needed National Guard troops. First of all, let me just remind you all that during the 2020 riots that took place in the summer of 2020, the then mayor, Eric Garcetti, did request National Guard troops because our local law enforcement was unable to handle the sheer volume of rioters. So he requested the help of 1,000 National Guard troops. And remember, the summer of 2020, the riots that took place in that summer were far more widespread. We're talking about, look, there were obviously like peaceful protesters. I don't want to conflate them with the rioters, but the riots weren't just isolated in one or two parts of LA. They were all over the place. They were in the San Fernando Valley. They were downtown LA. Everywhere you went, there was looting, rioting, and it was hard to get a handle on things. LA is a sprawling city. It's huge. And so if you're watching these videos online, you might get the impression that there's rioting happening everywhere. The entire city is dealing with riots. That's not true. It is limited to isolated parts. However, these riots have grown. And last night was probably the worst of it. this continues to grow, I wouldn't be surprised if it does continue to get worse. And to be sure, LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell did weigh in on the violence and how the department is pretty much unable to deal with it. Take a look.
This violence that I've seen is disgusting. It's escalated now since the beginning of this incident. What we saw the first night was bad. What we've seen subsequent to that is getting increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people.
Look, there's an abundance of evidence to prove what the police chief is saying there, but clearly, as these riots have grown, it's become more difficult for the police department to maintain order, and that's what he's trying to talk about there. But I wanna reinforce what he's saying in regard to the violent acts by showing you this video. This was when the protesters, or I shouldn't say protesters, at this point, rioters had taken control of the 101 freeway near downtown Los Angeles, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Get down! Get down!
Oh! Here we go. Oh!
So rocks, bricks. In that video that I just showed you, a police officer gets hit in the head with either a rock or a crushed up cinder block that was thrown by someone on the freeway overpass. Real classy. So they're playing right into what the Trump administration wants. Let me be clear about that. So when these riots grow in size and scope, and you have a situation in which the police chief says, we can't get a handle on this, we're overwhelmed, that's gonna, in the minds of many Americans across the country, and certainly the Trump administration, justify sending National Guard troops. Now, so far, the National Guard troops have been focused on protecting federal agents from DHS and ICE as they carry out these raids, but also protecting federal buildings that were vandalized and targeted by some of these rioters on the first two nights of these riots. But what's really interesting is that while the police chief says that the police department is overwhelmed, and that doesn't surprise me, the police department has been dealing with severe staffing shortages for a few years now. You have our mayor, Karen Bass, saying something entirely different. Let's take a look at that.
Given the point where it has escalated to, do you think the National Guard is needed now?
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. I will tell you that I'm saddened by the extent of the vandalism in the form of graffiti all through the downtown area. But it is important for people to know that even in downtown, this is isolated to a few streets. This is not citywide civil unrest taking place in Los Angeles.
So she's right that this is not citywide civil unrest. It is, at least for now, isolated in a few parts of LA City. And by the way, Paramount, California, which is part of LA County, is not considered part of LA City. So that area is not an area that Karen Bass has jurisdiction over. But nonetheless, what she said at the very tail end of that is correct. However, I will also say that current leadership in Los Angeles City, and I mean the city council and yes, Mayor Karen Bass, is terrible. And typically they don't have a handle on anything at all. We've been having street takeovers for, I don't know, several years now, and they've been unable to control it. The police department has been unable to control it. So the idea that the police department is going to be able to handle growing riots in this city without any help at all is a little ridiculous to me. And I'm just keeping it real. Now, if the rioters are concerned about the feds coming in, I don't know, maybe I would reconsider rioting. But the rioters should not be conflated with the protesters, the demonstrators, the people who want to peacefully assemble and speak out against what ICE is doing. Those people need to be protected. But unfortunately, those are also the very people who end up getting conflated with the wreckers, who I would venture to say don't give a damn about deportations. Okay, I live in the city. These are the same people who love the chaos and have been engaging in chaos endlessly since 2020. They love it. Any excuse, to burn cars, light them on fire, any excuse to do street takeovers and do donuts, any excuse to hurl rocks at police officers. And you want to know what happens? The more that grows, the more justification the Trump administration has to send in federal agents and, National Guard troops. I do not think there's ever any legitimate reason to use the American military against American people. But that appears to be what the Trump administration is poised to do, and I find that disgusting. Now, I want to also just briefly comment on what we've seen in regard to police conduct, because some of their conduct has been just unacceptable, illegal, disgusting. I'll give you a specific example involving an Australian journalist. There's video of a police officer very intentionally shooting a rubber bullet at an Australian journalist who was doing nothing wrong. If you don't believe me, take a look at this.
You just shut the fuck up. You okay? I'm good.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I want to show you some still frames so you can see what I'm talking about here. I know that was a quick video. So if you look at the police officer, he's at the very edge on the left-hand side of the photo. That's the one who shoots at her. Let's go to the next image. There you go. Then you see him shooting at her. What's the justification for shooting at an Australian journalist who's literally doing nothing wrong? She's doing her job. She's reporting on the scene. So when you see those types of acts, that kind of brutality carried out by these officers and nothing ends up happening consequence-wise, that's what leads to distrust and disdain toward local policing. And I would like justice to be brought. I would like something to be done about these cops. Because if you don't have trust in the police force, you don't have a well-functioning city or society. And that's what we've been dealing with in LA for years now, and it's incredibly frustrating. All right, finally, I want to talk a little bit about the police department. They've been dealing with shortages, and on top of that, on top of the staffing shortages, the city of LA just passed their latest budget, which cuts the funding for the police department further, which is going to be a problem. So a key provision of the spending plan is expected to reduce sworn hiring in the LAPD to 240 recruits in 6 classes of 40, down from Bass's proposed 480 recruits in 12 classes of 40. So that's been the plan at a time when we're already dealing with staffing shortages. And you also have the police department saying that they're overwhelmed and they can't deal with riots. Recipe for utter disaster. Now let's move on to Gavin Newsom, who made clear that he intends to sue the Trump administration over its deployment of the National Guard. And he says that this is exactly what Trump wanted. That's correct. This is what he wanted. Congratulations. He flamed the fires and illegally acted to federalize the National Guard. I don't know if that's actually true. Now the order he signed doesn't just apply to California. It will allow him to go into any state to do the same thing. We're suing him. I don't know what grounds Newsom has to sue him. My understanding is that whether you like it or not, the president of the United States does have the right to federalize the California National Guard and essentially deploy them to protect federal agents and federal buildings. And that's what they've been doing. The real question is, what recourse do Americans or local politicians have, if any, when it comes to sicking Marines against Americans? That's what we really need to get some answers about. But look, Newsom, who's clearly already campaigning for the 2028 presidential campaign, absolutely loves this. I want to be clear about that. He loves every moment of this. It gives him an opportunity to essentially posture as some sort of savior who's willing to go head to head with Donald Trump. It helps him distract from his failures in California, including the boondoggle high-speed rail, which he has failed in getting built, growing homelessness, housing crisis. I mean, California's been a mess under his leadership. And then there was this cringe moment. Take a look.
Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
Yes, bloviating is definitely exhausting, Newsom. And he thinks he's not guilty of it. He's one of the worst perpetrators. And look, he's done very little to do anything to protect Angelenos or Californians. Again, the quality of life has been diminished under his leadership. So the idea that he's like going to be a great leader for the country is laughable to me. But I need you guys to also understand where the majority of Americans are when it comes to the issue of immigration. Because poll after poll, you have Americans telling everyone what they think about what's going on. And I think Democrats are not being strategic in response to it. So here's what I mean. Let's take a look at Harrington.
In his first term, Trump was way underwater at minus 21 points. But look at this, he's up over 20 points. Now in the aggregate, he is in positive territory at plus 1 point on his net approval rating. Some other polls even have it a little bit higher than that. There is no issue on which Trump is doing so much better than he was in his first term, more than the issue of immigration. No wonder the Times has written it up the way that he is. Trump is begging for a fight on this because he knows what he's doing so far is working with the American electorate. The American electorate believe that the Democrats don't have a clue on the issue of immigration. I mean, you could just take it here. Closer to trust more in immigration, Democrats versus Republicans. Got 3 different polls for you across the board. They all tell the same story. Republicans lead on the issue of immigration.
Well, what about the tactic that is currently being deployed by the Trump administration, where they go into specific towns and cities to do these deportation operations? I'm sure the majority of Americans don't find that popular, right? I don't know. Let's find out.
Why are people approving of Trump on immigration, approve of these different immigration actions while Trump's administration's program to deport those here illegally? Look at this, 54% approval. How about agents searching your hometown for those that they think are here illegally? Again, positive territory here, above 50% for Donald Trump. So it's not just on the broad issue of immigration where Trump is doing well, it's on the specifics. When you dive into the issues, Trump is above 50% and his actions are above 50%, at least with those most directly connected to what's going on right now out in Los Angeles.
So let me ask you guys something. If the response to what Trump is doing is rioting in the streets, flying foreign flags, burning the American flag, I just want people to think this through. How exactly do you get the American people on your side when it comes to immigration policy? See, rather than rioting, I would think strategically about how to use all the videos that exist of mothers being arrested before they can even pick their kids up from school. They're getting arrested and deported. Their kids are in school. They're begging to at least be able to talk to their kids before being detained, but they won't let that happen. Those videos are heartbreaking. You lose the argument when you start engaging in violence and when you destroy cities, when you light things on fire. You lose the argument. That's it. People are sick of it. The scale of riots that we're seeing right now, at least, don't even come close to the scale of riots that we saw in the summer of 2020. But the riots in the summer of 2020 have left a really bad taste in people's mouths. So when they see that go down on the streets of Los Angeles, and as this now appears to be spreading to other parts of the country, you're gonna lose the argument more. It's really important to not provide cover for people who are rioting. They're not accomplishing anything. All they're doing is destroying a city that's already dealing with a $1 billion budget deficit and will experience deep cuts to social services as a result. Now, more of the money is gonna go toward fixing all of the things that have been vandalized. It's just dumb. It doesn't accomplish anything. And all the people that we want to prevent from being deported will be deported with far more favorability toward the Trump administration in doing it. It's just dumb. I can't stand it. I want to give a big shout out to the peaceful protesters because they're always the ones who get shafted in situations like this. And so do the people who have been in this country for decades, sure, they might be undocumented, mostly because we have a broken immigration system that our Congress refuses to do a damn thing about, refuses to provide a pathway to citizenship for these folks. But they've been in the country for decades. They haven't caused any harm. They work, they contribute to society, and they're the ones who are gonna get shafted in this situation as well.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.